tastes like bacon.
Introducing AT&T Rollover Data. All mobile share value plans now come with rollover data on the network with the nation's strongest LTE signal. AT&T, mobilizing your world. AT&T reminds you to never text and drive. It can wait.
Available only with AT&T mobile share value plans. Rollover data automatically expires after 1 month or with any plan change. Other restrictions apply. Visit att.com/rollover data for details. Signal strength claim based only on average LTE signal strength for national carriers.
Like to spend a few days in another world? Then write this down. Golden Bear Cottages, Big Bear Lake. Now, listen, this is not some corporate-owned operation. It's family-owned and operated by some real nice people. Unique? Oh, you bet. Golden Bear Cottages features 28 one-of-a-kind cabins on a 5-acre historic site. Great for families, couples, and groups. And cabins are available with 1 to 7 bedrooms. Golden Bear Cottages is just a stone's throw from Big Bear Lake and super close to 3 great ski areas. Now, I could go on all day about Golden Bear Cottages in Big Bear, but to see everything, just go to goldenbear.net. Again, goldenbear.net. Golden Bear Cottages in Big Bear. Clean, comfortable, and affordable. Check them out. goldenbear.net.
It's getting hot here at Freeway Auto Center. Coming up Saturday, September 12th, Freeway Auto Center presents their car meet and sales event. They're bringing you trophies, raffles, vendors, music, and much more just when you thought there was nothing to do on a Saturday in September. Freeway Auto Center brings you a day you won't forget. All brought to you by Low and Fitted. Not to mention the all-day promo and video recording. Find out how much fun you can have buying a car. Remember, it all comes together at Freeway Auto Center from 1 to 10 p.m. Saturday, September the 12th. Did I tell you where it all happens?
No.
It's going to be at 333 South Waterman. That's just north of the 10 freeway. The Freeway Auto Center Car Meet and Sales Event, hosted by Low and Fitted, September 12th. It's getting hot at Freeway Auto Center. You've never had such a good time buying a car.
We found the problem with your car.
And
Turns out the carburetor differential modulator is out.
what?
And while we were digging around in there, this thing fell off.
Stop. There's no automotive repair nightmares at Diego Martinez's 5-Star Automotive in San Bernardino. 5-Star Automotive, where you'll get a great experience, and home of the $15.99 oil change. That's right, just $15.99. They specialize in transmissions, brake repair, AC, and many other repairs, all with a lifetime warranty on parts and labor. Diego knows when your auto needs 5-star attention, it's never convenient. He offers a 12-month interest-free auto repair loan on major auto repairs with no money down. He'll even throw in free towing and a 10% discount for his neighbors in the 909 who work for the city and county of San Bernardino. Call 909-387-0770. That's 387-0770. Your neighbors at 909 West 2nd Street in San Bernardino.
Come visit the all-new Tiger Trail at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. Get an early start and have a bountiful buffet breakfast at Tiger Trail's Sambutan Longhouse while watching these majestic creatures. A tiger keeper will be on hand to share stories about these fascinating felines and will invite one of the tigers to join the session. Then explore the Tiger Trail's 5.2 acres, watch the tigers climb rocks, swim in ponds, and nap in tall grasses. See these beautiful animals up close, all at the new Tiger Trail at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. Go to San Diego Zoo Safaripark.org.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. Then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just Just call 1-800-643-9406. That's 1-800-643-9406. Again, 1-800-643-9406. Call now.
The other station claims to be local. Since when is Glendale local? KCAA News Talk 1050, your true local station.
Hey! What the? Honey! The water just stopped in here.
They turned it off because you're wasting water.
What? What are you talking about?
You know.
Because you know it's all about that drought, no water. It's all about that drought, no water. It's all about that drought, no water. It's all about that drought, drought. Yeah, it's pretty clear, we're really short on blue. It's time to save it, like we're supposed to do. Some say it's doom, gloom, and all our grass must go. But together we can make it and enjoy our golden state. It's all about that drought, no water. It's all about that drought, no water. It's all about that drought, no water. It's all about that drought, drought.
Desert to the ocean, to all across America, and back to beautiful downtown San Bernardino. Welcome to the Water Zone Show with Rob and Mike. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm totally excited about our guests and our topic this evening.
Would you like to eat? Are you hungry?
Yeah, I'm about, I think so. You know, it's about that time of night.
Well, what they're going to talk about is agriculture. And
oh, you mean that food that gets grown in California? I think we're produce something like 50% or more of the fresh fruits and vegetables that are consumed in the United States. Something like that. I know we grow a lot of great food in California.
And a lot of nuts.
we do grow some nuts. That's true.
Both the food kind and the people kind. But anyway, we're going to turn this over to make this Ag Day today, and special guest host that we're putting in today is Miss Ingy Bisconer, who's a technical marketing and sales manager for the Rural Micro Irrigation Division, along with Paul McFadden, who's our senior national accounts manager. And I think they're going to have a good time doing the show. They have some really great guests that they're going to tell us about, and we'll just stand by on the sidelines and watch them do a great show.
I am particularly just excited because ag is so important, not only to me personally, because we eat food, but just the products that are used in growing our food and getting to know more about what farmers have to go through in getting water.
Absolutely, and I think this would be a perfect opportunity for the people, our listener audience, to know the difference between the facts and the myths about what's going on in that industry. So, without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Ingy Bisconer.
Thank you, Rob and Mike. Thanks for allowing us to sit in for you today. Hopefully we have just as much fun today as you guys have every Thursday night as I sit and listen to this show. We have two very special guests on tonight that we'll introduce in just a moment after my buddy Paul here, my partner in crime on this show, gives us a little bit of a framing of the topic of ag irrigation. You know, yes, we eat 3 times a day, and agriculture is what allows us to do that. So, Paul, tell us a little bit about how much water in California is used for agriculture and urban and all the different uses.
Great. Thanks, Ingy. Thanks for the introduction. I think it would be helpful in the preparing for the show. We thought it would be useful for us to kind of set the record straight, if you will, and clarify some misconceptions on how much water is used by agriculture and how much used is by urban users and by the environment. So we went back and did some extensive research and using California Department of Water Resources facts, have come up with roughly 60% of all the water in the state of California is used for the environment. So it's used to manage watersheds, in-stream flow requirements for wild rivers and streams, to manage the water in the delta, all those kinds of things. And another 30 to 40% is used in agriculture. So that water is used specifically for growing food, and as Mike mentioned earlier, 50% of all the fruits, nuts, and vegetables grown in California is consumed by folks in the U.S. And then another 10% of the water left is used by urban and commercial users. So it's a pretty interesting blend that we have in the state. I also thought it would be helpful to share with you that the state of California, roughly in size, is about 100 million acres. And of that 100 million acres, 27 million acres is growing crops of any kind. The 250 different crops that we grow here in the state of California is grown on one of those acres. Of the 27 million acres, only 9 million is irrigated. And of that irrigated land, 30% is drip irrigated, drip or micro irrigated, 20% is in sprinklers, and 50% of that land is flood irrigated. So obviously, with the drip and the micro irrigation and the sprinkler being the more efficient use of water, we thought it would be helpful for listeners to hear that that's how our water is used in the state of California.
Well, that's really informative because, there's a lot of numbers that are thrown out, and we hear the 40%. We also hear the 80%, that ag uses 80% of the water, and that's really 80% of the human used water is agriculture, and the other 20% urban, and this other 40% is on the overall. But that's interesting. The drip and the sprinkler and the gravity irrigated acres, there's still quite a few gravity irrigated acres. We'll be talking a little bit about drip irrigation today. For those of you who don't know what drip irrigation is, I'll give you a brief little primer on it. Basically, we're a manufacturer of drip irrigation equipment. We extrude tubes out of polyethylene and insert engineered emission devices that precisely deliver water directly to the crop's root zone, feeding both water and nutrients directly to the crop roots in a low pressure way and in a very efficient way. And that's the most important thing. We're efficiently spoon feeding the crops without potentially runoff or deep percolation beyond the root zone. And at the same time, since we're spoon feeding the crop with this drip irrigation technology, the crop is more responsive and it yields more and we make more food. So drip irrigation basically helps us make more food, fiber, and fuel for our state and for our country and for the world. So it's really a great technology, and the state of California has done a great job. We're about a third of our irrigated acres are already in drip irrigation, but as Paul stated earlier, we still have an opportunity to do a lot more good work with this efficient technology.
Kingi, if I could, I'd like to add that in addition to delivering not just water into the plant's root zone, this technology allows us to include fertilizers in there as well. So we're using far less fertilizer than we would in a conventional area where we're broadcasting fertilizer over a field. It's right in spoon feeding the plant both water and nutrients is an important and a key factor in this technology.
So does that mean that our drip system is delivering food to our food? Kind of, sort of, huh? We're feeding food to our food. All right. Well, thanks for that clarification. So I think this would be a good time to introduce our first studio guest. Who's this guy over here, Paul? Kind of a special guy, isn't he?
Yes, he's Chase Hurley. He's the general manager of the San Luis Canal Company in Dos Palos, California. The Canal Company delivers to over 40,000 acres of diversified crops, including cotton and tomatoes and alfalfa and things of that nature. Over the last 4 years, the company has helped customers by developing subsidy programs and infrastructure improvements, with the end result being a modernization or a more efficient use of our water and nutrients into 15,000 acres with the drip technology. And he's got some pretty pretty spectacular results. So welcome, Chase.
Well, thank you, Paul and Ingy, for having me tonight. It was great to drive down south and join you, and hopefully we can educate the public a little bit more about what ag is all about here in the beautiful state of California.
Very good. Well, I first heard this spectacular case study from Chase. We're both on the California Irrigation Institute, and Chase made this presentation last year, and we have since been able to present this to some other folks. And so, Chase, tell us a little bit about the San Luis Canal Company's drip irrigation conversion program, why it was needed, how it's helped your farmers, and both the farmers and the canal company and the state's water situation. You should see on your screen soon a graph of some of the results, the average results from Chase's water district. But Chase, walk us through that process.
Yeah, San Luis Canal Company delivers water to approximately 330 landowners that encompasses 40,000 acres of highly productive farmland. We have pre-1914 water rights through California law. So this farmland is 3 to 4 to 5 generations, has been around for a long time in production agriculture. And as everybody else has to do in the state, we have to become more efficient. As farmers have. They've learned a lot throughout the years. We've had a very stable water supply, but in the last 10 or 15 years, our very active board of directors, along with our farmers, have decided to invest a lot of their own money through money raised through their water rates to increase the efficiency in our irrigation system, adapt our irrigation system from something that was built in the early 1900s to things that look more modern in today's age. So a lot of SCADA-driven systems. And the farmers, it's driven by the farmers and what they need to grow the crops most efficiently. And they started to make the conversion to drip irrigation. We are for the 98% row crop, so historically flood irrigation. But around 8 to 9 years ago, we saw folks starting to put in drip tape, and it was really started in the tomato industry, the cannery tomatoes. And so by seeing that conversion, we came up with an internal program where through water rates and through the proactive transfer of some water to our neighbors and generate some revenue, we now have an internal program where we fund up to $500 an acre to help growers not only convert to drip tape, but to purchase sprinklers, purchase other high efficiency systems, along with installation of pipelines, concrete ditches, etc., to conserve water.
Just curious, why do you feel that the subsidy is needed? Chase, why do you think the subsidies are needed to motivate these growers? Sorry.
Yeah, and I don't know if I would call it a subsidy. The money is generated. It's generated through our own shareholder revenue. We are a private mutual water company, so the money is derived internally, along with, I said, outside revenue from selling some of our water, conserved water, to a willing buyer next door. And did we really need, as a company, to invest this money into with our own growers? Potentially the answer might be no, but our board of directors decided to be more aggressive. They knew that for every $500 that we invested on a per acre basis within our boundary, it would help not only conserve water, but then the landowners can decide as a group through our board of directors that maybe perhaps some of that water can be sold on the open market to our neighbors. It's sold right across the street to a willing buyer, and we take that money and put it into our infrastructure to modernize our system. So it's a great program. It's worked very well. We budget close to $1 million a year for the program, and it's almost at this point in time a self-revolving program where we get loan money every year, and that loan money goes right back out the next year for similar projects.
Sounds like a win-win situation.
It definitely is. The shareholders win on the backside, the growers win on the front side. Absolutely.
That's great. The viewers probably can't see the graph. Maybe the Ustream folks can, but I might walk through just a summary of what these results have been for them. I mean, your cotton growers got 20% more yield and used about a third less water, and your tomato growers probably almost doubled their yields and used a third of the water. That's pretty spectacular. But I bet there were some challenges going from flood irrigation to drip irrigation during this adoption of 15,000 acres in your water district. Can you help explain how they succeeded so well so quickly?
Yeah, like everybody does in private business, sometimes you have to learn on the fly. You learn through some of your mistakes. We actually got the great chance to learn from some of our neighbors. Our neighboring water districts are federal Central Valley Project contractors, so they had converted to drip many years ago. So we got to learn from them as well. But I think the biggest challenges for our water users as they converted, one was how to maintain a salt balance within your soil. With furrow irrigation, every time you irrigate, you're helping push the salt down. As you described earlier in the show, you're feeding this water now right to the root zone. So you're only going 12 to 18 inches deep, and that salt wants to accumulate in the root zone. So trying to figure out how to leach some of that salt out, not only during the season, but in the off season, was one big challenge. Another challenge was rodent control. A lot of our guys have issues with gophers, and trying to the upkeep on this thing with the gophers wanting to chew on the tape for their own water supply has been a really, really interesting perspective that I don't think our growers even thought about. And then I think the last one is the learning curve. You're actually out there looking for experts to help you. The irrigation vendors in our area do a great job of installing the product, a great job of designing it, but they're, for the most part, not in the business of, after it's up and running, how to irrigate with it, how to fertigate through it. So I think we're getting more and more people to come into our area, whether it's private consultants or being hired directly by the farmers on staff to help them through this learning curve that we've had over the last 5 to 8 years.
That's interesting. You mentioned earlier in a comment about Kcaa. Might be helpful to kind of define what Kcaa is for those who don't know.
Yeah, it's a supervisory control automated system. So our system.
That sounds pretty fancy. Yeah. Whoa.
Our system is over 150 miles of open canals, very few pipelines. We are converting some of those open canals as we speak to concrete line facilities. But it's an old system with wooden and concrete weirs, and you have to, what I say, chase the water downstream. So as folks order water, shut off water in a gravity system, you have to chase that water all the way downstream. What we've done now is converted a lot of those weirs to automated systems. So they control, on the upstream side, they control the level. And any fluctuation in our system now, we have built one reservoir that helps catch that spill from our canals. And we're in the process of buying land for our second reservoir. So a lot of this automation that we're doing is now we're trying to keep up with our farmers that have gone to drip. On a drip irrigation schedule, you're irrigating maybe 2 or 3 times a week for 12 to 24 hours at a time. So our farmer might be taking a head of water for 24 hours, where before he would take a head of water for 4 days. So a lot of it is trying to update our system, and a lot of it is trying to keep up with all the changes our landowners have made.
So by converting to drip, you saved water that you could sell to fund the ease of adopting drip on more acres.
That's one thing we've done with it. Some of that conserved water we've taken and sold to our neighbors, and then we take that money and plow it right back into our infrastructure and into our grant and loan program for our farmers. Investing
in that newest and latest and greatest technology like the Kcaa system.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yep.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot more sense than perhaps fallowing acres where you're not producing food and, decline in jobs and economy and everything that goes with it. Rather use technology, modernize your technology, and still get great results and enough water to go around.
Absolutely. It's a win-win. It's a win for our farmers, it's a win for our shareholders, and it's a win for our neighbors in California at large, because we're able to take that water and transfer it to neighbors that don't have a senior water right like we do, and are willing to invest in programs so we can transfer that water to them so they can produce the same type of food and fiber that we do.
So, Chase, question: you guys are obviously very progressive in the way you're approaching these issues, and even prior to the drought. What are other water districts using? Not just ag water districts, but urban water districts doing, and what can they learn from folks at the San Luis Canal Company?
Yeah, I think every district is different. Like we did, we learned on the front side from some of our neighbors that had already converted to drip irrigation. We have districts such as San Luis Water District, Panoche Water District to the south of us that had took dirt-lined canals and converted to plastic, had took dirt-lined canals and converted to pipelines, had done a lot of this technology already. Their growers were a couple of steps ahead of us, and like I said, that was driven because of a lack of water based on their contractual water right with the Bureau of Reclamation. I think if you pay attention and learn from your neighbors, I think if you pay attention and listen to your growers and your farmers, they know, sort of what they need to maintain their market share. They've obviously got to make a profit to stay in business. So it's just keeping your ears open, working with professionals, working with folks like Toro and other manufacturers. You got to be willing to try things. I give our board of directors a lot of credit. When myself and my staff went to them and asked to invest $7 million of money that they had set aside in a reserve account to build a reservoir and overhaul 2 of our canals, they had to take a big gulp. It was something brand new for them. They had put their heads down and farmed for, the last 85 years based on the very good water contract they have. But they said, you know what, let's take a leap of faith. Let's put $7 million in this one facility. And just in the first year, we pulled 18,000 acre feet of water out of our system that we would have lost without that reservoir project and the SCADA system on the top end.
But I think it's important to point out that each acre foot of water is 326,000 gallons. So that's enough for 2 households, and that's a considerable sum of water.
Absolutely, and I forgot to mention that some of our partners through our Conserved Water Transfer Program are municipalities in urban areas. So we have a very good working relationship with Santa Clara Valley Water District to the west of us and others similar to them. So not only are we moving water to the ag sector, but also some of our urban neighbors.
So, Chase, would you recommend these same actions to other water district managers? I mean, you manage a pretty big water district, 40,000 acres, and you have a lot of neighbors around you, and I guess there's 400 or so water districts in the state. Right. What would you recommend these same actions? And if so, what would your top 3 lessons learned be? Absolutely, I would, and I think a lot of our neighbors in the Central Valley are already there. I know some folks up in Northern California that are doing the same thing. Their crop base is a lot different, so some of their actions might not seem as up to speed as ours, but in terms of the cropping pattern they grow, it'll look a little different. So I would say the first thing to do is make sure that your board and farmers understand that there's risk. I think that's pretty easy to convince farmers. Farmers deal with risk every day, and that you're going to have a few bumps in the road, but there's always willing partners out there that will help you invest, whether it's the private sector, whether it's another local utility. But I would say be willing to take the risk, educate your landowners the best that you can, and then just push forward. And I just think you've got to be aggressive in today's market. Water in California is a precious commodity, as everybody's known in the last 4 years of this drought that we're in. Our canal company, landowners, and water users have never seen anything like this. Last year and this year, the contractual supply that we'll receive is far less than anything they've ever seen. And to be honest with you, they didn't think they'd ever see this. So I'm glad that, prior to this, and 5 years prior to the drought beginning, we have started to make changes. And I don't think if we hadn't made the changes in the canal company infrastructure and the drip irrigation on the last 8 to 9 years, we would have a hard time struggling through a year like this. And if we get a big old slug of rainfall this winter, is that going to fix it all? No, it definitely won't. It'll be great. Let's get a lot of rain. Let's get a lot of snowpack. But I don't think it should slow anybody down. It's too precious of a resource. Let's continue to innovate. Let's continue to move forward. Let's continue to find new and diverse partners, and let's be progressive. California has too much at stake if we don't continue to promote agriculture here in our bountiful state.
If you had one thing that you wanted to leave the viewers or listeners with, what would it be, Chase? I would just say that really spend some time to educate yourself on the importance of California ag. It's something that if we don't continue to do that, and agriculture has to do a better job of it, we gotta realize what we have here. I think we're getting better at educating our neighbors and their urban communities. But just educate yourself, because I think if we continue to lose farmland for whatever reason here in our state, we're going to look back when the next generation takes over and see what a serious mistake we made.
Hi guys, how's it going? Very good. Your first show is doing great. I have to pop in here to go to the break and give out the numbers for people to call. So anybody who wants to ask some questions, please do so. Our toll-free line is 888-909-1050, or if you're in the 909 area code, please dial 909-888-5222. And we'll be back in a minute on the Water Zone.
Are you looking for the right place to purchase your landscaping items? Well, come see us at Hydroscape. Hydroscape offers a large selection of irrigation products including Irritrol and Toro, such as their efficient precision nozzles. For 40 years, Hydroscape has been family owned and operated, serving Southern California. With 17 locations, our knowledgeable and experienced staff is equipped to help you with all your irrigation, landscape, and outdoor living projects. Whether you're installing irrigation systems, wanting to maintain a healthy landscape, or simply create a beautiful lit space for outdoor entertaining, Hydroscape is the place to go. Visit our website at hydroscape.com for more information and find helpful articles on our blog, or call our customer service center at 1-800-395-4477.
Were you involved in an auto accident? Do you know where to go for repairs? Are you tired of getting ripped off by high prices and inferior work? Then visit us at Inland Empire Auto Body and Paint, located in Riverside at 6411 Industrial Avenue, Suite A. We have an award-winning team of specialists with more than 40 years of auto body work experience. We were also voted #1 in the Inland Empire by MyFox LA. We work with all major insurance companies and use state-of-the-art equipment to get your car back on the road. We work on all makes and models of cars, including RVs. Our auto paint specialist will make sure the job is done right. At Inland Empire Auto Body and Paint, your satisfaction isn't just a goal, it's what drives us. We focus on your needs. Call us for a free estimate at 951-637-1365. That's 951-637-1365. Inland Empire Auto Body and Paint.
Are you tired? Are you tired of being tired? Do you hate your job? Do you feel like you're on a hamster wheel and want to jump off into balanced living? Then tune in every Thursday at 7 p.m. for Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. It's a show about hope and how you can be happy 88% of the time. So there's no CNN, constantly negative news, no gossip, no scandal, and no K-words, no Kardashian talk. Instead, you will hear callers ask Dr. Marissa, also known as the kinder, gentler Dr. Laura, for advice about love, hate, money, jobs, sex, and what to do next. So join me every Thursday at 7 for Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa on KCAA AM 1050 NBC News Radio. This is Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah, signing off until then. Peace in and peace out.
To the Water Zone Show with Mike and Rob, and we're standing on the sidelines today as we have our people from Toro's Micro Irrigation Division in here talking, Miss Ingy Bisconer and Paul McFadden, and they have some great guests, and I think there's also a caller in, so I'm going to turn it over to these guys and continue the show.
First, before we continue, I'd just like to thank Chase for getting up early this morning and driving down to the station to be a participant in this event. It means a lot, and I hope listeners will agree that the information that we were able to share with you was very valuable. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Chase. It's been a pleasure to work with you at CII, and we'll put a plug in for the conference. And January 25th in Sacramento, we'll have the California Irrigation Institute conference, and we hope that you all come, learn about it, or look at the website afterwards. Chase and I are both ex-presidents and current board members and organize that conference every year. So our next guest, we have a caller. Don Escondilla. Hi, Don. How are you? Where are you calling from?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hi. I'm in Escondido.
Oh, Don from Escondido.
Right.
All right.
My question was had to do with headlines lately say that Californians are doing a great job in their consumers are doing a great job in conserving water, and we've beaten the goals that Governor Brown put out for us. But I don't hear much about how agriculture has been keeping up with any goals for conservation. Is that something that is out there that just isn't in the news as much, or what can we hear about water conservation from agriculture as consumers? Are they matching our performance or beating it, or what can you tell us?
Yeah, Don, thanks for the question. Actually, since Chase is still here and he's in the thick of that, we're going to go ahead and give him a minute here to answer that question, and then we'll put on our next guest who's waiting on the phone.
Don, that's a great question, and I think I'd answer it from this perspective. The majority of folks that are farming in the Central Valley have a water contract, whether it's through the Bureau of Reclamation or the Department of Water Resources. And the contracts in our area range anywhere from 2 acre-foot per acre up to 4 acre-foot per acre. Vast majority of those folks are getting a zero allocation this year. So their 2-foot allocation is a zero. So not getting any of that water. In a canal company such as mine, we get in a 100% year around a 3.4 acre-foot per acre. We probably won't even get half that allocation. So yes, because we're getting very limited supplies to begin with, we're still farming crops that have a consumptive use anywhere from 2 acre-foot per acre to 3 to 4, whether it's a tree crop, an alfalfa crop, a tomato crop. So we conserve every drop we can. And in years like this, if you drive through the Central Valley, you're going to see a lot of land out of production. And it's out of production because we just don't have the water. So yes, we're conserving every drop we can as efficiently as we can to get us through years like this.
Well, thank you, Don, for calling in and asking that question. And I think, Don, you might want to hang on because we'll hear more about that from our next guest. Wade, are you there? Is Wade on? Okay, very good. So Wade Crowfoot is our next guest, and some of you may have heard of him. He's in the news a lot. He is our Deputy Cabinet Secretary and Senior Policy Advisor to the Office of California Governor Edmund G. Brown. So he's very close to our Governor Brown, in the news a lot, and Wade has made many public appearances on the heels of Governor Brown's April 1st announcement of Executive Order B 2915, ordering Californians to conserve water by 25% amongst other actions. Wade, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking time to call in. We know that you're a very, very busy man. Hopefully you were able to listen to some of Chase's comments as well. And I'm going to hand it over to Paul McFadden, my partner in crime here, to ask you the first question.
Sounds good.
Welcome, Wade. Thanks for the time. Just heard from Chase how we're doing on the ag side, and how the previous caller suggested that we're surpassing the goal set by Governor Brown. Holistically, how would you say we're doing as a state, both on the ag sector and the urban sector?
Great question. Well, I think that really everyone in California is stepping up to respond to the drought, and that's been really encouraging. As probably almost every listener knows, this is one of the worst droughts in our history, if not the worst drought, depending on how you measure it. And that means really they're suffering across the board. Certainly in the agricultural sector, particularly in the southern San Joaquin Valley, there are hundreds of thousands of acres of land that are fallow, that are not in agricultural production, which is having real economic impact on the farm and the farm workers. There's major environmental impact where we're facing certainly harm to endangered species, and folks talk about even the extinction of some types of fish species that have been returning to California's rivers for 10,000 years. And then many of our water agencies that provide water to communities are finding themselves in dangerous straits where emergency support is required by the state to actually keep the taps running for their water users. So the challenges are great, but I do think that there's been a remarkable response. Within communities, as it's been widely reported, Californians stepped up to conserve almost 30% of their water use. In other words, using 30% less water this summer than they would in a normal summer. The agricultural sector, although it may not be as widely reported, is rapidly adopting technologies like micro spray and drip irrigation and doing their part in many regions of the state. And then our agencies that take care of some of these endangered species have done a wonderful job too. literally trucking hundreds of thousands of these small endangered species from place to place around California so that their species remain intact. So altogether, the challenge is great, but the response has been encouraging.
Yes, it has, Wade. I've attended a webinar recently where you were a keynote and you were speaking about, how resilient ag has been in the face of this drought. And, ag is a big contributor to the nation's food and so forth. But actually, on the scale of California's economy, it's not so big. We have a $2 trillion economy, and ag is probably 3% of it. So that resiliency is very important, but it's kind of been at the expense of overpumping some groundwater and jeopardizing perhaps some of the things you were just talking about, the health of our ecosystems and so forth. How from a policy standpoint and from your activities and funding and incentives, how best can we balance those needs between the environment, between urbanites, between ag, even though it's not a huge part of California's number economy, but it feeds us 3 times a day, as we just discussed. How best do we do that from yours and Governor Brown's viewpoint?
Yeah, that's really the million-dollar question, right? I would say, first of all, the agriculture sector is a critical part of California's economy. And while it's true that if you looked at it from an overall sort of GDP or gross domestic product standpoint, it's a small portion of our economy, it's critical for a couple of reasons. One is, California in many respects helps to feed the nation. And, the crops that my relatives get in Michigan, they buy in the grocery store, many of them come from California. So when California agriculture suffers, the nation's breadbasket suffers, and that's important. And then secondly, there are a large region of our state, certainly the Central Valley, and particularly communities in the Central Valley, that are largely dependent on the agricultural sector. So when agriculture suffers, whole communities suffer, which mean unemployment and just challenges to people's day-to-day life. So we're completely committed to helping the agricultural sector weather the drought. And Inga, as you mentioned, they've done a great job of that. The agriculture sector has demonstrated a lot of resilience in the face of reduced water. I think something important to mention is that different regions of the state that grow crops and livestock are impacted differently. So we hear a lot about the impacts in the South San Joaquin Valley, Tulare County, parts of Fresno County, and those are areas that typically have what are called junior water rights. So they're lower priority water rights based on when those water rights were established than more senior water rights. And so those surface water supplies to agriculture have been significantly diminished. And in those areas that you mentioned, agriculture has kept up in some respects by increasing the pumping of the groundwater from underground basins. In other areas of the state where the water rights are more senior and those surface water supplies have been more secure, agriculture has been less interrupted. But in those areas of the state where the surface water supplies, that is water from the reservoirs and the rivers and the streams, have been impacted, there has been a whole lot of groundwater pumping. And we think about the groundwater as almost a savings account that help our state get through periods of drought. The challenge is that with the intensity and the length of this drought, is that savings account has been tapped like never before. And last month, our state released a report with using NASA satellite data that still shows the land is actually sinking rather significantly in parts of the Central Valley, which has real implications or risks on our infrastructure like our highways and our aqueducts, et cetera. So this is a major challenge. The question you ask really, though, is how we balance the needs for water in the state. We have 38 million Californians that depend on water each day. We have a major agricultural sector that needs water for economic productivity. And then we have an environment. And what we like to say is, we need to make water available for all of those needs. We want and need the agricultural sector to continue to thrive. We, of course, need to support the day-to-day needs of Californians. And I think many of us who live in California feel proud of the beautiful physical environment we have and want to conserve that. So the question of balance is a challenging one, especially in a time of drought. And I can tell you at the state, we've really been working to use every drop as effectively as possible. You know that Governor Brown called for communities in California to reduce their water use by an average of 25%. So we've asked communities, cities and towns to step up. The agricultural sector, which receives its water again through the water rights system, has been impacted as well. Again, major impacts if you're more junior water rights system. And the environment has been impacted significantly too. A nonpartisan scientific study released last month suggested if the drought continues into next year, there are 18 species of native fish in California that are faced with extinction. And not just small fish you've never heard of, but these rather iconic salmon species that, again, have been returning to our rivers for eons. So what we're trying to do is really minimize the impact on each by, to the extent possible, flexibly managing the system, both our state project, our series of reservoirs and aqueducts, and our federal project as well, all the while requiring as much conservation as we think is appropriate.
Thanks, Wade. Just we've heard about all these different things that we need to be looking at to help us through these difficult drought periods, and also help us become more efficient during the wetter years with groundwater, infrastructure, tax incentives, surface storage. What are the things in your opinion? As a state, we should be looking at short term and then from a longer term perspective to help prevent these things or help mitigate some of these problems we're having today in these severe this 4-year drought cycle that we're in.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, when we look at the science and the information on the weather, both the precipitation and the temperatures, it's clear that the climate here in California is changing. We're having warmer winters, which is exacerbating drought. And so we believe that California actually needs to adapt to this new climate. And so what does that mean? Couple things I would suggest. One is we believe that we can collectively improve our water system to provide enough water for those three groups of water users, again, communities, agriculture, and the environment. The governor released last year the California Water Action Plan, and it doesn't point that there are any silver bullets that actually will create a more system that's more resilient to drought, but rather it suggested 9 areas where the state actually needs to make improvements. And I won't take time to explain all 9, but I can tell you that it certainly includes increasing storage, which is both above-ground storage or reservoirs, and below-ground storage, which is using underground basins as reservoirs. It includes increasing the amount of water that gets recycled or used again in California, which is a promising technology that's been deployed across the state. It calls for better use of and capture of our stormwater that typically runs out in storms out to the rivers and out to the ocean that can actually be recycled. It calls for doubling down on conservation. I mean, the fact is, over the last couple of months, Californians have stepped up and reduced their water usage by 30%. So that suggests to us that we have more room for improvement on a day-to-day basis outside of a drought in terms of the amount of water that's conserved. And then it also calls for employing technology. There are all sorts of off-the-shelf technologies that, if applied more broadly, will save us a whole lot of water. And it's everything from drip irrigation on the farm and in people's yards to better use of these smart water meters in cities. that give homeowners more information about the ways that they're using water. It's new technologies helping water agencies detect leaks, to software systems that farmers can use to maximize the efficiency of their water usage. So it's really not, I can't point that it's really any silver bullet. The good news is that there's a series of steps that, the state has identified that it needs to take to build the resilience. And good news is that California voters stepped up in a big way last year and approved the state's water bond, which will provide $7 billion of funding for steps in that water action plan. Now, just to control expectations, it's not the entire amount of money that we in California need to make ourselves drought resilient for the coming decades, but it's a pretty big down payment in that respect.
Yeah, that's there's a lot of money that will be needed, and I remember a couple of years ago, Felicia Marcus, your chairman of the State Water Resources Control Board, she stated at our California Irrigation Institute conference when she spoke that when you talk about the solution, it's really all of the above, and many of those things that you just mentioned. It's technology, it's behavior change, it's using recycled water, stormwater, desal, drip irrigation, and we see a lot of that happening already. And I would wonder, from the funding standpoint, I know that there are programs like the SWEEP program that have helped fund drip irrigation in agriculture, for instance, in the past. And then you missed, I think you were en route, Chase Hurley's interview here where the San Luis Canal Company self-funded here over the last 4 years 15,000 acres of drip irrigation, which helped them save a phenomenal amount of water. Do you see more of this type of funding coming down the pike to help with technology actually at the farm level or at the water district level?
Absolutely. I mean, what's remarkable about a project like Chase's is what you realize is that making an upfront investment can save money over time and actually make a producer or make a water district revenue that they can reinvest. And, the good news is that California agriculture has come a long way in the last few decades. If you look at the incorporation or the integration of drip and microspray irrigation, you'll see that more acreage each year is being put into production using those efficient technologies, or converting to those water-efficient technologies. As a result, the farmer has more water to be productive with. So one, I think it's a program like Chase's is pretty inspiring because it's saying even without any government funding, this can be ultimately a wise thing to do for the pocketbook. But I will say in California, we are committed to helping agriculture with this transition. Our California Department of Food and Agriculture initiated a program called SWEEP, which stands for the State Water and Energy Efficiency Program. And what it does is it provides funding to agricultural producers, farms, and ranch lands that are incorporating water-efficient technology. It comes from what's called the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which is essentially a program that the state initiated a few years back. What we do is we ultimately charge the producers of carbon pollution in the atmosphere. And what we do is we create an economic incentive to reduce that pollution by charging for that pollution, and then we plow back the money into activities that will reduce pollution over time. It's been funding the SWEEP program because by helping farmers reduce their energy use and reduce their water use, it ultimately reduces the pollution that is required to create the energy that farmers use. So it's a real beneficial cycle, and what it means is that farmers on the ground are getting state funding to change up their practices to become more water efficient, which again frees up more water that they have to grow more crops, which ultimately increases the efficiency of the water or helps them be more economically productive with the water that they have. So we've been pleased with the first two rounds of the SWEEP program, and I think you'll hear in the news in the coming days and weeks it's a program that will continue.
Great. Just something that's very topical. We're talking on the way to the station this afternoon about food safety, and I think it's worth discussing briefly. We in California are somewhat spoiled by having a safe and abundant food supply. With the farmers in the state of California growing 50% of all the fresh fruits, vegetables, and nuts consumed in the country, and 70-80% of everything that we eat as 38 million people in the state. Traditionally it's been a very safe food supply, we talked about briefly the on the way here the problem with the imported cucumbers and the salmonella that's caused some problems. And I think it's worth mentioning that as a farming community, we produce a very safe food, and perhaps a brief comment on that, Wade.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the Central Valley, as our listeners know, is among the most agriculturally productive regions in the world, not only the continent, but the world. And so we're blessed with remarkable abundance of good soil, good weather, and good farmers, basically. And so we're proud that we, as a state, produce food that not only Californians enjoy, but the entire world enjoys. And we're also really glad that it's of such high quality that the California brand, in many cases, actually brings a premium. And part of that, of course, is our is the record of food safety that our agricultural producers have established and our food processors. So it's something that we want to obviously see continue. And as we move to use of new technologies like recycled water, using water twice and irrigating crops, we do that carefully because we want to make sure that the water that's being used to irrigate our crops and our food continues to be safe. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you, Wade. We're just about to wrap up, and I did want to just mention, too, that the better we do in agriculture, it'll be better for not only the environment, but also the urbanites, too. I know that everybody's responded real well to the governor's request to reduce 25%, and that has involved some turf grass removal and things like that, whereas I think we're finding that if people just irrigate better with what they have, or maybe use more drought-tolerant plant species and such, that's also a good solution. So I would hope that that's part of the Felicia Marcus's all of the above, that we just do a better job of managing and change our behavior a little bit instead of on the downside fallowing acres or ripping out our landscapes. So,
yeah, I think that's right. What we found is a little bit of behavioral change and maybe the incorporation of some more water efficient technologies have actually led to a 30% conservation number. And I can tell you that we in the governor's administration, and I know Governor Brown, are doing whatever we can to protect economically productive industries like agriculture. And that's one of the reasons why we have asked people to step up and conserve in their own lives, so we can make sure we have funding to, keep the crops growing and keep endangered species alive.
Well, thank you, Wade, so much for coming on and for all of your efforts and the governor's efforts. It's a privilege to have you here today. Hopefully you can come back soon. We're going to wrap up. I would like to encourage everybody, if they want to learn a little bit more about drip irrigation in agriculture, to visit our website, driptips.toro.com. You may see an image on your screen here soon. We have a wealth of educational material to help the farmers and the dealers if it's a design issue, our owner's manual, our design software. Please visit us. Come and see us at the CAIA conference next week, at the CII conference in January, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 AM, the station that leaves no listener behind.
It's time now for the latest chapter in the thrilling global adventures of Scott Walker Commando. Walker, the right-wing Wisconsin governor who's backed by the mighty money muscle of the Koch brothers, is known chiefly for advancing the corporate agenda by ferociously busting